James Wolfe, District Secretary in Miami. I'm responsible for all state roads in District 6, mostly Miami-Dade, and the management of our highway work program. For instance, this year we have a little bit over $1 billion of construction projects going out. 25% of the funding approximately is federal aid, so we send our tax dollars to Washington and it comes back. That's 25%. About 19% comes from tolls.
Oh, right, okay.
And the remainder is a variety of state funds, primarily a state gas tax. So most of what supports transportation comes at the pump. You know, there's nothing like Miami-Dade.
Yeah.
It's a different place. There's nothing like Monroe. That's a different place. But it's still FDOT. It's still transportation. A lot of the technical elements are the same. But Miami is a big city with big city issues, and it's very different. I-395 is a signature bridge. That's the biggest project going out this year, and it's expected to be a landmark. It's called signature because it's going to be on postcards, if people still use postcards, but it's something that will be part of the skyline of Miami, and people are waiting to see what that's going to look like. Well, if you can list to me the 6 projects in the SMART plan, then those are talked about, but in fact, we need to get the message out on what those are. But none of those are new. They've all been talked about for at least 15 years. But now we have the MPO, Miami-Dade County. They're in agreement that these projects need to be pursued, and we're going to be a partner in making that happen. One of the most significant partners is the Metropolitan Planning Organization. They set transportation priorities, and we have a large transportation budget, and we try to make those priorities happen. So we work closely with the MPO, which is composed largely of local government officials, including the county commissioners. So they set the priorities, we try to make it happen. It won't be a success unless it's built and put into operation. So there are many technical aspects that need to be overcome, including, does the project make sense? Do the numbers work? Is that going to lead to being able to finance it? Is it going to be able to develop public support? All of these factors have to come together. It has to be reasonable, achievable, fundable, have public support, or it isn't going to happen. One of the key factors to all of that is going to be ridership. Will people want to use it in sufficient numbers to make it worthwhile to do the project? All of this is part of the development process in making each of these 6 transit corridors a reality. Projects generally start as a vision, which is the difference between what we have today and what we want to be in the future. And engineers tend to take visions and try to make them a reality. And that reality deals with hard facts. What is achievable, what can be done, what are the numbers, what funding is available to do something. So the difference between having a vision and carrying out that vision and making it real is very substantial. But that's what engineers are for. Engineers achieve visions. Well, our roads are blessed with no snow.
No snow?
No snow plows ripping up the raised pavement markers. We can do a lot of things differently. Freeze-thaw cycles tend to crack pavement and let salt get to steel. We don't have that problem here.
No.
We have great roads and transportation facilities largely because we maintain them, but we're also blessed with that. One thing we have is a lot of sun. So you'll often see road signs, stop signs for instance, that have turned pink instead of red. The sun tends to bleach out colors. So that's an issue that we have to deal with. The sun will also bleach the black pavement white, so we know that when we put white lines on pavement, we probably need to put black lines on them too. So you'll often see center lines with both black and white. That's a particular issue that we have. Pavements will stay black up north.
Yeah.
So we do have some differences, mostly good, but some bad. Everyone needs to be careful about working in hot or sunny conditions and drink fluids. But in fact, in northern climates that do have snow, you can't pour concrete when it's cold, you can't lay asphalt when it's cold. Northern states often have to shut down part of the year.
Oh, definitely.
We are able to work 12 months a year. We might try to schedule critical activities outside of the peak tourist season, but the weather allows us to work all year round, which is a great benefit for us. Yeah, it's inconvenient, and if you have a 2-year project, you may have 30 rain days where you couldn't work. And it's in the contracts. The contractors are given a day per day allowance for rain days. Well, we do have Metro Rail, so we've got to start. And if you look at a map with the SMART plan, the 6 new proposed routes, every single one of those connects to Metro Rail, all 6.
Okay.
So we have a backbone that needs to be extended so that it has complete coverage over the county, but we're not starting from ground zero. We have a good basis. Land use and transportation should desirably be planned concurrently.
I know.
And there are conflicting theories, the chicken and the egg that says you develop, land use develops around existing transportation. So that's why cities are located where there's a port or there's a river. But then you have a transportation planning process such as the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and their job is to look at projected land use and ensure that transportation facilities are developed even prior to those land uses actually needing them. So roadways are designed on a 20 or 30-year traffic projection. So we're jumping the chicken and the egg process and saying, okay, this is what is planned for development. Let's develop transportation before it is needed.
Yeah.
So you have land development driving transportation. And in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, there was a lot of disconnect between the land development and the transportation. And there was a realization that what you do with land development has a lot to do with how transportation works. And they really should be planned concurrently. And now in Miami-Dade and around the country, we have more mixed-use development. We have transit-oriented development. And when we look at this SMART plan and 6 new transit corridors, that needs to be developed in conjunction with changes in density. We need to have higher development density where we can serve it with transit, and we need to have transit where there is higher density. So the two go hand in hand, and the best way to deal with that is to cooperatively plan and make it happen concurrently.
Yeah.
We have continuously been rebuilding our transportation network.
So it can be.
We are at this point in time, for instance, express lanes on I-95. We could not add additional conventional capacity, so we came up with a new concept, which was the 2 tolled express lanes, and they maximize the throughput of those 2 lanes, and they in fact help everybody. They help the untolled lanes because they're drawing off traffic that would otherwise be in those lanes. It's a new way of taking an old facility and getting more out of it. And we need to be doing that all over the county with our transportation facilities. And one of those ways is transit, that we can get a lot more, we call it throughput. We can move a lot more people in the same space if we're using transit. So you're going to see a lot of projects that combine highway improvement with more transit, looking at how to use our facilities. Because part of the issue is we're not going to be buying land to make a 6-lane arterial 8 lanes. We're not going to widen I-95. We're going to work within the existing land that we already have allocated to transportation. And that's just a reality based on cost. So we probably have an ongoing 2% population growth in Miami-Dade. And if we're not adding lane miles of highways, how do we accommodate that 2%? We need to accommodate that with better land use patterns that don't create more transportation demand. And we need to address that by increasing the percentage of traffic that goes on transit. If we increase transit by that 2% every year, rather than put more highways on the road, we won't worsen the situation, but we'll be able to accommodate growth. So that's the real challenge for us, developing a multimodal transportation system that can address growth without declining levels of service on our highways.